Well, we're very lucky this evening because on the past Sunday evenings we've always invited some people up to talk about their involvement in the community, and I imagine that the person who's with us tonight probably knows more about what's going on than just about anyone else, because he's the editor of the local Weekly Herald newspapers, and it's Peter Edwards. So evening to you, Peter.
Good evening. Good evening.
Nice of you to come along to Radio Enfield this evening.
Pleasure to be here.
How long have you actually been involved now with the Weekly Herald?
I have been involved with the Weekly Herald since 1944. I've had a couple of breaks since then, but virtually over 30 years.
So you must have seen quite a few changes in that time in the Herald.
Yes, I actually started in Enfield town with the old Enfield Herald, which has also gone through a lot of changes. The place has become very highly developed. Not always in the right way, in my view.
Of course, in those days, the Weekly Herald was quite different from how it is now. There were 5 editions, I think, I'm right in saying.
Well, going back further than that, there were 3 editions, actually, the big 3 Weekly Heralds. We were taken over the Thompson organisation in 1968, and they stepped us up to 5 editions. But then we had complications with the amalgamation of the boroughs, which cut right across our circulation areas. And we now do 2 editions, one for the Borough of Enfield and one for the Borough of Haringey.
And of course also the sort of size of the papers changed quite dramatically since then, both in thickness terms and also actual page size.
Yes, we got with it round about 5th of October last year actually, and went tabloid. The thinking being that so many people in our main circulation areas, the Lee Valley, are accustomed to reading a small national paper like the Sun, the Daily Mirror, Daily Mail. We followed suit.
Well, let's talk about putting the newspaper together. I suppose the most obvious question is how do you put a paper together?
With difficulty, actually. No, it's a full-time job. We're on sale every Thursday morning at about 7 in the morning. 2 hours later at 9 o'clock, work starts on the following week's issue. People think a weekly newspaper just goes to bed once a week, but in fact we have pages going away every day of the week because of our production schedule, which is a little bit complicated. I don't know if you want me to go into how we produce the newspaper.
At one time I believe it was actually produced in Tottenham, were your head office is.
Well, it was produced in Tottenham for over 100 years, but we had to face the economic facts of life, which were a bit difficult in the printing trade. And we have no production at Tottenham now. In fact, twice a day a messenger goes up into the wilds of Essex to Saffron Walden, where we have a nice little typesetting operation, who produce the pages up to negative stage. We don't use hot metal anymore, it's all photo web offset. Produced to negative stage, and on a Wednesday afternoon all the pages are sent up to Peterborough. And the paper is actually printed in Peterborough.
So quite a complicated process.
It is complicated, but we've got it off to a fine art, and we don't get many hiccups. The paper comes down on a large lorry in the small hours of Thursday morning, and is then distributed by our own van drivers locally.
That's right. So getting back then, it's 9 o'clock on Thursday morning. Now, where do you get your news from for the following week?
Well, we've got 25 journalists. 13 of them are reporters who have their contacts. 7 of them cover the Borough of Enfield. They have routine calls, police stations covering magistrates' courts, council meetings. And of course one of the advantages a local newspaper has that the readers like to take part and they contribute, as well as our professionals.
What makes good news? What is a good readable news item?
As far as a local newspaper is concerned, I think something which gives information to the reader. I think they get enough sensational blood and gut stuff in the national papers. They want to know what's happening in the school that their child's going to, what's happening to the road that they walk down, how much they've got to pay in rates next year. What happened to Mrs. Brown down the road. Little bit of scandal from the police courts, if their neighbour goes to court particularly.
Another important part, of course, of the paper, which again a lot of people probably buy the papers for, is the advertising. Obviously you've got used cars, new houses and all the rest of it for sale. How is the advertising obtained? Presumably you do have sort of advertising
we've got a very sophisticated advertising operation. We have, as well as what we call display representatives who go out selling space to businesses. we have a telead bank of about 6 girls who not only canvass and sell over the telephone, but are there to receive calls from readers. Any reader can pick up and dial our telephone number and place an advertisement over the telephone.
And getting back to the page size business, you were telling me before we came on the air that the advertisers in particular find it a lot better now. It's a smaller page because they can sort of have their own page.
Well, yes, there's not so much on a page, and therefore an advertiser doesn't get lost among a half dozen other advertisers. I'm talking about display advertising now.
Yes.
If there's only 2 or 3 advertisers on a page, there's a 33% chance his advertisement's going to be read.
Do you think that local papers are becoming, should I say, more community conscious than perhaps they have been of late? I'm thinking of the Herald in particular, with you had the recent coverage of the Wendy's Walk marathon from one end of the country to the other.
Yes, that was a fantastic promotion, yes.
Also, you've been involved in the Enfield Town Show as well this weekend.
Yes.
Do you think that this is sort of the thing that the local papers are going to be more involved in future?
Yes, I think so. We think we've got a part to play in the community.
Peter, you mentioned that you've been with the Herald now for quite a few years. Can you take yourself back and remember any particular sort of scoops or features that stick in your mind over the years?
I don't know. I remember when I was a very junior reporter, I heard about an Edmonton woman having quads. This was before the fertility drug, and quads were quite rare, and that was the Taylor quads. And I was involved in that story for some time. But generally speaking, you know, we don't go after the sensational story. We have had several nasty fires in the area. 1 or 2 bloody murders, which are supposed to sell a paper. But
Okay, well, thanks very much indeed, Peter Edwards, for coming along to us and giving us a bit of background information on the local paper. It's been very interesting, and I'm sure that everybody will be going out to their newsagents as soon as they leave hospital to order their regular copy of the Herald.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and I'd like to wish everybody in hospital a good night's sleep and good health in the future.
Thank you once again, Peter Edwards, editor of the Weekly Herald. Right, well...